Yesterday, we talked about the worst signing from each free agency class of the past decade, so now today I feel like it's only right that we take a look at the best. 2024 NHL free agency is rapidly approaching, less than a week away now. If you guys are excited for that, then be sure to leave this video a like and let me know down below in the comments what are some predictions that you might have for this year's free agency class. Also, just as a quick heads up before we get started, there was another trade that took place yesterday that I have not talked about on the channel just yet, so for those interested, I will be giving my quick thoughts on the Mikheyev trade at the end of this video. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and start off the video with the best signing from 2014 free agency. I went with defenseman Matt Niskanen, who signed a 7-year, $40.3 million deal with the Washington Capitals, a cap hit of $5.75 million per season. This was the biggest contract that any unrestricted free agent signed who was changing teams in the summer of 2014. $5.75 million per season was a lot more back in 2014 than it is today. Heading into the summer of 2014, Matt Niskanen was coming off of a season with the Pittsburgh Penguins in which he put up career highs in goals with 10 and points with 46. A lot of times we see guys put up career highs in their contract year like Matt Niskanen did, sign a massive contract in free agency, and then fall off of a cliff, and the contract ages very poorly. However, that is not the case when it comes to this signing, as Matt Niskanen was a key fixture on the Washington Capitals blue line throughout the first 4 years of this contract. He put up 30 or more points in each of his first 3 seasons as a member of the Washington Capitals, and he also played a massive part in the Washington Capitals winning the Stanley Cup in 2018. Throughout that playoff run, Niskanen averaged almost 25.5 minutes of ice time per game. The only member on the Capitals that averaged more minutes per game throughout that run to the Stanley Cup was John Carlson. In order to free up some cap space, Matt Niskanen would be dealt to the Philadelphia Flyers in June of 2019 in exchange for Radko Gudas. At the time of this trade, Niskanen still had 2 years remaining on this deal. However, due to uncertainty surrounding the pandemic, Matt Niskanen would decide to call it a career after just 1 season in Philadelphia. Moving on now to the best signing from 2015 free agency, another signing made by the Washington Capitals, Justin Williams, who signed a 2-year deal with the Caps at $6.5 million, a cap hit of $3.25 million per season. To be honest, Justin Williams was on a bargain of a contract pretty much every single year of his entire career. The highest cap hit he ever had in a single season was $4.5 million. Justin Williams really was just always balling on a budget. He was very productive for the Washington Capitals in the 2 seasons he spent with them. 22 goals in his first season in 2015-16, which was 3rd on the team, and then 24 goals in 2016-17, which was tied for 3rd on the team. He may have never been a superstar, but easily one of the most consistent players throughout the 2000s and 2010s, and also one of the most clutch players. His nickname was Mr. Game 7 for a reason. Moving on now to 2016 free agency, I said in yesterday's video, the best thing GMs could have done during 2016 free agency was have their phone turned off, because this free agency class was absolutely brutal, and the majority of contracts that were signed aged very poorly. But there was a few gems, and I think the best was easily the Minnesota Wild signing Eric Staal to a 3-year, $10.5 million contract, a cap hit of just $3.5 million per season. This signing turned out to be an absolute steal for Minnesota, as Eric Staal would lead the Wild in goals in each of his first 2 seasons with the team, including 42 goals in the 2017-18 season, which was the 2nd highest goal total he's ever had in a single season. For a few seasons, this contract was looked at as one of the best in the entire NHL. Eric Staal would extend for 2 more seasons in Minnesota following the conclusion of this 3-year, $10.5 million deal, before ultimately being traded to the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for Marcus Johansson in September of 2020, and this is really where Eric Staal's career started to wind down. Continuing on now, my pick for the best signing from 2017 free agency is going to be Evgenii Dadonov, who signed a 3-year, $12 million deal with the Florida Panthers, a cap hit of just $4 million per season. The Florida Panthers, the team that selected Dadonov in the 3rd round back in 2007, got him to come back over to the NHL after a pretty long stint in the KHL, and after signing this deal, Dadonov had his best 3 seasons in the NHL to date with the Florida Panthers. 25 plus goals in all 3 seasons he spent with them after coming back over to the NHL, including a career high 70 points in the 2018-19 season. This is a contract that was seen as quite a bit of a risk for the Florida Panthers when it was initially signed. Dadonov was around 28 years old when Florida gave him this 3-year, $12 million deal. Sure, he had been putting up very impressive numbers in the KHL, but up until this point, Dadonov had been relatively unproven at the NHL level. But the risk paid off for the Florida Panthers because for these 3 years, they got fantastic value. Moving on now to the best signing from 2018 NHL free agency. I feel like a lot of people may disagree with me on this, but I'm actually going with John Tavares, who signed a 7-year, $77 million deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs, a cap hit of $11 million per season. I'm well aware that but this contract has made it pretty difficult for the Maple Leafs to build a serious contender around Marner, Matthews, and Nylander, and the Leafs haven't won anything yet since signing Tavares to this deal, and his game has definitely taken a couple of steps back recently. He is overpaid at this point, but in my opinion, even if the Leafs were to go back in time, this is still a signing that they make 10 times over. John Tavares went on to become the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, scored a career-high 47 goals in his first year with the team, has scored 25 or more in 5 out of the 6 seasons he's played for them so far. I can understand the argument from some people that don't think this was a good signing, but in my opinion, looking back at the 2018 free agency class, which was a pretty weak free agency class as a whole, I'm really not sure what signing you would go with other than John Tavares as the best. Moving on now to the best signing from 2019 free agency. This is a very easy one. It has to be the Rangers signing Artemi Panarin to a 7-year, $81.5 million contract, a cap of around $11.6 million per season. I remember when this signing was made, I definitely had my doubts on if it was going to age well for the New York Rangers. At the time Panarin signed this deal, it made him the second highest paid player in the league in terms of cap hit per season, only behind Connor McDavid, and at the time I really didn't think Panarin was going to be that caliber of a player, you know, one of the absolute best players in the league like he was getting paid, but boy was I wrong, because Panarin has been exactly that since signing with the Rangers, one of the best players in the league. Over the last 5 seasons, the only players in the NHL with more points than Panarin are McKinnon, Draisaitl, and McDavid. That is some elite company, and he seems to just keep getting better and better. Panarin is coming off of a year in which he put up a career-high 120 points, led the New York Rangers to the President's Trophy. Had it not been for just the otherworldly type of seasons that McKinnon, McDavid, and Kucherov had, Panarin is a guy that would have gotten some serious consideration for the Hart Trophy. Continuing on now, my pick for the best signing from 2020 is going to be the Vegas Golden Knights signing Alex Pietrangelo to a 7-year, $61.6 million deal, a cap of $8.8 million per season. This is another one that I think you could say is debatable, similar to the John Tavares pick. Alex Pietrangelo still has 3 more seasons left at a cap of $8.8 million, and his game definitely took a bit of a step back this past season, especially defensively. Now being 34 years old, there's already been some talk about the Golden Knights potentially moving Pietrangelo and looking to get out from under the final few years of this contract. But even with all that being said, no matter what happens from now until the end of this deal, even if Pietrangelo's involved in a cap dump trade a year or 2 from now, I still think this signing became 100% worth it the second the Vegas Golden Knights lifted the Stanley Cup in 2023, especially considering how big of a role Pietrangelo played in Vegas winning that Stanley Cup. He led the entire team in ice time throughout that playoff run. Moving on now to the best signing from 2021 free agency. This is a no-brainer. It is the Edmonton Oilers signing Zach Hyman to a 7-year, $38.5 million deal, a cap of just $5.5 million per season. Not only is this the best signing from 2021, I honestly think this signing will go down as one of the best free agent signings in NHL history, which is pretty insane considering when this contract was signed, more people thought that it was a really bad deal for the Oilers than people thought it was good. What Hyman has been able to do in Edmonton throughout the first 3 seasons of this deal, I don't think anybody could have seen this coming. He's gotten progressively better and more productive each season so far with the Oilers, 27 goals in his first season, 36 goals in his second season, and then a career-high 54 goals this season. And the offensive production in the regular season may not even be the most impressive part of Zach Hyman's stint with the Oilers so far. The dude has been a complete monster for them in the postseason as well. Already 51 career playoff games with the Oilers, and in those 51 games, 29 goals and 48 points. Say what you want about how Zach Hyman gets his goals, backdoor tap-ins, rebounds on the doorstep, deflections, pucks banking in off his knees, off his head, but at the end of the day, a goal is a goal, and Zach Hyman has been an elite goal scorer so far as a member of the Edmonton Oilers and has really just fit like a glove next to Connor McDavid. Moving on now to the best signing from 2022 free agency, I will give an honorable mention to Frank Vatrano. That contract has turned out to be an absolute steal for Anaheim, but my pick has got to be Vincent Trocheck, who signed a 7-year, $39.4 million contract with the New York Rangers, a cap hit of a little over $5.6 million per season. So far through 2 seasons, Vincent Trocheck has been an unbelievable fit for the New York Rangers. He's coming off of a year in which he put up a career-high 77 points in 82 games. He was also a beast for the Rangers in the playoffs this year in their run to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think it's controversial at all to say he was their best player in the playoffs. Had 20 points in 16 games, a ton of clutch moments. Trocheck really has been the real deal so far for the New York Rangers, the kind of player you can throw out there in pretty much any situation. He's very effective on both special teams. $5.63 million for a guy who's playing like a legit top-line center is an absolute bargain. And now finally, my pick for the best signing from 2023 free agency so far, I think it has to be Ryan O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with the Nashville Predators, a cap of $4.5 million per season. I'll give an honorable mention to Matt Duchene, who signed a 1-year deal in Dallas, and that looked like a steal. Gustav Nyquist, another Nashville signing, looked great for them, but I definitely think the best has to be Ryan O'Reilly, who still has 3 more seasons at a cap of just $4.5 million, an absolute steal for the Predators. This season, which was O'Reilly's first year as a member of the Nashville Predators, he had probably one of the better seasons in his entire career. 69 points, 26 goals, which is the most goals he's scored in a season since 2018-19, the year St. Louis won the Cup. He's still one of the better 200-foot players in the entire league, very effective on both special teams. He actually led Nashville in power play goals this season with 14. Ryan O'Reilly isn't one of those players who relies on a ton of high-end skill and speed to be effective. He relies on his smarts and high hockey IQ, and usually those are the kind of players whose games age the best. So I think it's pretty safe to assume this contract is still going to look like an absolute steal for the next 3 seasons. So those are my picks for the best NHL free agent signings from each offseason of the past decade. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, before I get out of here, I do want to give my quick thoughts on the Ilya Mikheyev trade that took place yesterday. The Chicago Blackhawks have acquired Ilya Mikheyev at 15% retained, along with the UFA rights to Sam Lafferty and a 2027 second-round draft pick in exchange for a 2027 fourth. There isn't really a whole lot to break down here. This is a pure cap dump for the Vancouver Canucks. It's one that I think a lot of us saw coming. Mikheyev still had 2 more seasons left at a cap of $4.75 million. The Canucks are retaining 50%, but still by making this trade, they free up a little over $4 million in cap space. Since making this trade, they have re-signed Dakota Joshua, which I think was a big priority for them, and they're one of the teams that are heavily rumored to be in on Jake Gensel, so it makes sense that they wanted to clear this cap space and get a bit more flexibility heading into free agency. And looking at this deal from the point of view of the Chicago Blackhawks, this is a great bit of business for them. They upgrade a 4th-round draft pick to a 2nd. You get a guy in Ilya Mikheyev, who is not only going to help them hit the cap floor, but he's someone who should slot into their middle 6 nicely, be an effective penalty killer for them. Although Mikheyev has lost a step due to injuries, he's still a pretty speedy guy who plays a strong 2-way game. His finishing is very inconsistent, which definitely frustrated Vancouver Canucks fans. Oftentimes, creating the chances isn't the problem for Mikheyev, it's finishing them. If he can find that finishing touch, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to Chicago and scores maybe 15 to 20 goals. And who knows, depending on how Mikheyev plays for Chicago, and maybe in the final year of this contract, this is the guy the Blackhawks could look to flip and get an additional draft pick or prospect. So those are my quick thoughts on the Mikheyev trade, but as always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, especially if you're a fan of either the Vancouver Canucks or the Chicago Blackhawks. Be sure to let me know how you're feeling about this trade down below in the comments. If you made it all the way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave it a like. It definitely does help out the videos a ton, and it's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all again soon.